Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and good evening to wherever you are viewing us, or to you, wherever you've been viewing us from all over the world, or to some people say good night and welcome to NLM and you. And today being the 6th, that's correct, Thursday the 6th of November 2025. All day today it has been Thursday the 6th of November 2025. We have an exciting lineup of a discussion for you, and we are dealing with the issue of marijuana, its cultivation, its promotion, medical cannabis, so to speak. Some words have been used interchangeably. But before we get into that, I want to express sincere condolences to those persons who have lost loved ones. Congratulations to those persons who are celebrating anniversaries and birthdays and so on. Welcome. My name is Doris Charles. I am the candidate that is proposed or selected for participation in the upcoming general elections. And I urge you to vote for Doris Charles for the constituency of South Leeward on the western side of St. Vincent, here on the island, on mainland St. Vincent. So vote Doris Charles for representation, quality representation. I promise to give you my very best in the constituency of South Leeward, and of course within the wider context of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is home to 110, bordering 111,000 persons. And we are a loving, thoughtful, kind, hardworking group of people in the main. I want to express a very special welcome as well to Mrs. Hodge, and she is also part and parcel of the National Liberation Movement of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So here we go. I want you to listen at least for the next 2 minutes or so to a song that was sung by Beckett. It's called Coming High, and I want to put context to this particular song. So share the live, share the live. This is NLM and you, and I'm your humble servant, Doris Charles, and all the way over yonder on the other side of the globe is Mrs. Barbara Hodge. So listen to the song as I am playing it from YouTube.
You wanna tell me if you should tell me
yes, good afternoon to all.
Tell you what. Yes. Marry, do you wanna? Marry, do you wanna? I'm coming high, 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 high. I'm coming high, 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 high. I'm coming with marijuana. Oh, marijuana. Oh, marijuana. Marijuana. Music sweet, 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 sweet. Music sweet, 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 sweet. With me marijuana, marijuana, marijuana.
Share the live. This is NLM and you, and this afternoon we are discussing all things marijuana. All things marijuana we are discussing this afternoon, this evening, this very night. Well, my head is not bad this evening, yes? Or this afternoon. My head isn't bad. But Yeah, these are the words of the song from Alston Beckett, the great. Okay, so we will take it, we will take it we will stop it there, so to speak. I want to say this, brothers and sisters, that those words, I think, or the song, was sometime in 1977, 78, thereabout, and I was a teenager. And part of my vow as a Christian, which would be sometime after that, it's that I shouldn't sell, I shouldn't trade in alcohol, narcotics, and so on. You know, the drugs, tobacco in all its form. Yes, so there was this sort of disconnect in my head. I'm listening to all these songs like everybody else, but I would have had this particular mandate, this prohibition, this special something that says, an oath that I would have taken to say that I wouldn't sell things like marijuana, I wouldn't drink alcohol, and so on. I wouldn't trade with tobacco and all of that. And introduced to me way before I became a Christian in those days, way before, introduced to me was this whole concept, this whole initiative of smoking marijuana. I grew up in a village where many persons smoked it, but how did it come to the village? Good afternoon to the residents of Vermont and surrounding areas in this South Leeward constituency. I would have had a training to say, proper training, parental guidance, other persons in the community that says, do not smoke this thing. This thing will make all you go crazy. This thing will put some people to fly, all kind of thing. And you had all those thoughts and the decisions that we as children had to make. People used to come to our shop. We had a small shop in the village. And I remember one particular cousin, he would come regularly and he would bring like a half sack of marijuana and he would ask that I help him to weigh them out. In those days, parents were very strict. But there was a young man who attended one of our secondary schools and he brought the marijuana plant into the village. That's as far as I could remember. Brothers and sisters, relatives, friends, neighbors, I tell you, quite a number of us would have sat at his feet as he began to engage on the value of this marijuana plant. But I want to say this. What about alcohol? I tell people all the time, I said, if the doctors prescribe 2 teaspoons of sunset rum before bedtime for me, 3 drops of marijuana oil to rub my feet, 1 drop of marijuana oil to be added to things, my food and so on, to aid digestion, you bet, in order for me to get better, I will take what the doctor prescribed. So, why? I want to get better. But the issue is this, I've had to use cannabis oil for sprained ankles, strained muscles, recurring back pains from the effects of a vehicular accident over 20 years ago. And in my way of thinking, my way of feeling, it worked, this cannabis oil. But before the cannabis oil, sitting at a desk somewhere in London, we would have had this issue about, well, I had a personal struggle because I remember in my background I had this thing, well, boy, should I actually use the information that I have, as opposed to why am I researching this on behalf of my country? Well, welcome, Jean. So generally, there is no difference between marijuana and cannabis, they tell me, and the two terms are often used to describe the same thing. That's according to one website. That cannabis describes products in general, and marijuana specifically refers to cannabis products that are made from the dried flowers and leaves and stems and seeds of the cannabis plant. We have a facility here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that is called the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, because we have what is known as the medicinal cannabis industry. I want to shout out my good friend who heads that authority. As far as I know, I think he's still there, Mr. Terrell Mapp, a gentleman who may be described as a humble African. And so, within the last 7 months or so, we would have had a discussion with persons on the other side of the globe who wanted to buy cannabis from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we would have had like a 3 or 4 way conversation, and he was able to point out to them the benefits of making sure that they know what they're doing in terms of purchasing or, making an order from farmers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But I researched this thing while I was in the UK, and I found a copy of the paperwork that I did. And to that effect, what I saw from that, what I recall, it was, I was looking at the economic value to our country and was particularly interested in that aspect of things. What it is that this plant that was introduced to me and others during my teenage years, what benefit can that do or bring to St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Added to that, we have had our Prime Minister at the time who sat with BBC and other major media houses, and he was telling them about the value of this medicinal cannabis industry that he perceived. He had the backing of people like me who did the research, or some of the research, to have that paperwork. You want to ask for a copy? Just let me know, and you would be able to get that, because I don't have any copyright, anything attached to that. I did the research and willing to share that with our viewers. Share the live, and welcome to Mr. Hodge as well. So here it is that, fast forward, we have established what is known as a medicinal cannabis industry. And what's the value of that to us? Have we really benefited? We, the members of the National Liberation Movement of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is one movement, a political movement about governance for the people, by the people, that will look at this medicinal cannabis industry again. We will review or review with the aim of amending legislation so that we are able to look at the legal implications, further legal implications for St. Vincent and the Grenadines within the context of this globalized medicinal cannabis. Then I met a couple of guys on the street recently, some good friends, and they were talking, they were saying, boy, they fool we about this medicinal cannabis, and we want the sensimalia, the real thing. And I'm saying we need to have a conversation. I've spoken to pharmacists, and some of them are terribly against this idea of encouraging medicinal cannabis. But if they were to be truthful, you had the opium and those poppy seeds, and you would have had today, you would have had the same issues that the medicinal cannabis or cannabis is going through. Is the same, basically the same route in terms of this vigorous or robust conversation about the benefits or the disadvantages and advantages of using cannabis. That was happening to the poppy, and of course eventually you have opium, and you also have some products, byproducts were like morphine and others, based on the readings that I would have done, to say that there is benefit, especially to those of us who would be suffering in some way. If we go to the hospital, we are able to get, an injection here and there to numb a particular area when we go through operations and other medical challenges that require, like for example, you're removing a tooth and so on. God has placed weeds and herbs and basically plants upon the face of this earth. Some folks say, oh, the plant is for the healing of the nation. We'll come to that. Don't want to jump the gun. But again, congratulations to Mr. Terrell Mapp and his team for spearheading our medicinal cannabis industry, because we are for that in terms of encouraging more research, encouraging us as a group of nationals who are aspiring to redefine what is the national economic and social development agenda for our country. And part of that is that we want to leverage on medicinal cannabis. So hear me now. Within the pharmaceutical industry, I recall about 3 years ago, one of my good friends who came to visit was telling me that she is able to make capsules. I said, from what? She showed me a small machine, and she was able to use, at the time, I think it was turmeric, and something, one of her daughters was suffering from something, and she was saying, look at such and such a place within her house, so that calling back to the particular country to let them know that she would have made some capsules specific to that. And I'm saying, what about cannabis capsules? What about cannabis capsules? Can we make cannabis capsules here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Within the pharmaceutical industry, can we expand on that? Can we use the brain power, the human capital that we have to challenge ourselves, to challenge us as to investing in that area, a lab, a proper lab, not a private one, but a proper one. Well, I shouldn't say not a private one, because we may have private labs who would look into this as well, making cannabis capsules, testing our cannabis or marijuana to see the levels of whatever else that you have within those crushed leaves and stems and so on. Okay, what about injections? What about cannabis patches? What about the creation of jobs within the medicinal cannabis industry? So not only in the lab, but also you will have persons in the fields who would plant the raw stuff. So yes, Mrs. Hodge, you were saying, is not this plant a herb? And if it is, are we looking at what is its purpose? Well, I am glad that you said that in terms of herbs, Before I answer that section with whether or not it's a herb, say we look at the mission of the medicinal purpose for this weed, but there's a cannabis regulatory body. And the mission statement, it says to regulate the medicinal cannabis industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the public interest, so as to ensure compliance with the law and support best practice in the cultivation, the manufacture, the management, the governance, and the administration of the medicinal cannabis industry. So let me go that over again. That it is the mission statement of the authority is this: to regulate the medicinal cannabis industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the public interest, so as to ensure compliance with the law and support best practice in the cultivation, manufacture, management, governance, and administration of the medicinal cannabis industry. Is it a weed? Mrs. Hunt, you asked something, and she said you need to investigate all its properties so as to be able to get the greatest use of it. Is it a weed or is it a herb? Let me tell you the interesting thing that I have found. And it's not that I didn't know, but then you hear Sensimelia, which is another name given probably for some specific strains of the same thing we refer to as marijuana, whether it's a weed or a herb. Some folks say it's a weed, some say it's a herb. A weed, according to the research that I've done, is any plant that colonizes and persists in an ecosystem in which it did not previously exist. They may affect the economy, the environment, human health, and amenity. And many plants introduced, well, this was coming from an Australian website. It says many plants introduced into Australia in the last 200 years are now weeds. So plants that are weeds have a number of common characteristics. They usually produce large number of seeds. They are often excellent at surviving and reproducing in disturbed environments. They can usually thrive in a variety of conditions. A weed can be an exotic species or a native species. Weeds can inhabit all environments, cities, deserts, waterways, and so on, and oceans. Weeds invade bushland, particularly where there has been some disturbance to the natural processes in that environment, and can outcompete native plants. But on the other hand, is marijuana a weed? And remember, we are saying that we're using the word marijuana and cannabis interchangeably for the purposes of this particular program. So what qualifies this to be a weed or a herb? So we're dealing now with herb. Welcome, Richards and Danielle. In botany, the noun herb refers to a plant that does not produce a woody stem, and the adjective herbaceous means herb-like, referring to parts of the plant that are green and soft in texture. Does the marijuana plant produce a woody stem? Yes, it does. And according to botany, it is not classified as a herb. So is it neither or neither? You know, and some folks will hold me to it, to say that that indeed the marijuana is a herb. But based on the findings here, and you could challenge me, you could talk about it, you could say, well, no, you don't agree. But here is the thing: we have an industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that was targeted, or I should say that was drawn from the Rastafarian, the traditional planters of this herb weed. You know, have they benefited? And to what extent? What is hurting me is this: you have persons who have never planted, whether it's a herb or a weed. You have persons who have never planted, not a single grain, not a seed, but yet they are benefiting from all extents and purposes. They are benefiting more than the traditional farmers with whom I have spoken. And this is a grievance that our farmers are facing. Am I advocating for us to smoke this thing? And no, I am advocating for us to do this. And that is for us to educate ourselves further as to the economic benefits of the medicinal cannabis. And also there are some other byproducts that we can actually use, or we can see adding value to whatever we have. And that, my brothers and sisters, is something that we are pushing. So as I told you, there was this young educated man who brought the weed to our village shop many years ago. I say weed, I say herb. he convinced the whole village to drink some of the root of the plant because persons got a little bit, iffy. I wonder if this will lick us out this night. And some persons fell asleep for many hours, which was out of the ordinary. And some persons decided they were going to smoke the herb. Now, the end of that young man is that he died prematurely. I do not know, because I'm not a coroner or a medical doctor. I do not know if it was as a result of smoking that herb or that weed. I don't know. But this one thing I do know, and I want my brothers and sisters to understand this, that the more you smoke, for all intents and purposes, I've had a cousin who is now dead, not as a result of smoking, but he has died some years ago. He said, Dari, man, smoke the thing. When you smoke it, your brain go get, you know what I mean? You could. And I looked at him and I said, but wait a minute. How come your brain is not expanding to the place where you are academically brighter or that you are involved in some sort of skill-based industry? How come? So he concentrated on smoking this, smoke it to the point where he became extremely thin, and gradually they got involved in all sorts of scripts. I could have been such an individual. I could have been one who, and I love my cousin, I could have been one who run behind him and say, well, yeah, let me see how this thing. But I had proper guidance that says, listen, don't get involved in smoking this thing. There has to be another value that this marijuana could give to us as human beings. But yeah, so back to the real issue. What's the real issue? The real issue, again, is this. If you continue to smoke, inhale, drink, your judgment, based on what the doctors have said to me, your judgment becomes impaired. And you suffer in so many ways. But there are some Rastafarians, some of my brethren, hear me out. If you compare opium and you compare cocaine to this marijuana, and you see the value that opium and cocaine could contribute towards the health industry, I am thinking that you should really sit back and think and listen long and hard as to review the particular uses to which the marijuana is placed or should be placed. So you have in St. Vincent and Grenadines, the Royal St. Vincent and Grenadines Police Force, responsible for the destruction of seized illegal marijuana, process that typically involves burning it at a designated location. We have an area in St. Vincent called Rabaka. That would be to the northeast of the country. And so under the supervision of senior officials and a justice of the peace, when marijuana is confiscated, because you see, generally smoking it and cultivating it outside of the rules and regulations specific to medicinal cannabis is still illegal. The argument is, how come which strain of the marijuana is illegal? Is it saying that, okay, these set that look brown or green, those are the ones that are better and so on? So, yes, you say you don't believe that God has any intention for us or any of his creations to smoke anything, or he would have put a chimney on our heads. Okay, that tickled me, that really tickled me. There must be another purpose for this plant. And that's the point. Yeah, that one shake me up there. Yeah, but that's the point. That's the point. That is what convinced me that I looked at, I think it was Delaware. It's one of the states I looked at. And I think the other one was California. And I started with the research at that point in time, sent back the information to St. Vincent, came back at the end of my tenure, continued with the discussions. And to my surprise, things just went south, meaning that they didn't develop along the lines that we thought they were going to develop in order for the traditional farmers to benefit. I want to say this, that the traditional farmers fell into the category of illegality and for the possession of marijuana still. Traditional farmers, they will plant, they'll reap, and they will sell to whomsoever. But here's the thing, the context is that while St. Vincent and Grenadines has decriminalized the possession of up to 2 ounces of marijuana for personal use, a ticketable offense, not an arrestable one, and established a legal framework for a medicinal cannabis industry, the large-scale cultivation and trafficking of marijuana for non-medicinal, non-legal purposes remain illegal. And that is what a lot of my Rasta brethren are not understanding. Or if they're not understanding it, they're kicking against it to say, make the whole thing legal. We have to come to the place where we eyeball this issue and put in place additional regulations to help our people to understand that they are destroying themselves, as Mrs. Hodge said, that if God had any intention for us to smoke, he would have put a chimney somewhere on top of our heads. So the context of my discussions basically is to help us to understand whether the marijuana plant have a woody stem, whether it is not classified as a herb, but it is a weed. The issue is that there is economic value, not just in St. Vincent and Grenadines, but elsewhere. We looked at best practices in other states outside of St. Vincent, and we can say that we can apply certain principles that are working in their favor. And so we used to go around to say this, that the next green goal of the economy of St. Vincent and Grenadines is the production or the cultivation of marijuana. What did the thing say is production, cultivation, yes, the cultivation, the manufacture, the management, the governance, and the administration of the medicinal cannabis industry. Here's my point, brothers and sisters. We see the cultivation aspect of things. Fellas, you're on the water boots, you're on the cloak, you're on the hat, they had a sharp cutlass, you name it. So you cultivate. When it comes to manufacturing, there's a problem. What I have seen is the extraction of the oil from the plant. And that oil is very powerful, just a few drops. And I'm telling you, I have used it on my back and so on. And that thing is very, very good when it comes to soothing your pain and so on. Some people, of course, water down the whole thing because I have gotten a sample of the raw stuff, thick. And I'm saying millions of dollars. That's $1 million industry. Yeah, $1 billion, depends on where you could get that sold. But then the regulatory arm of things, plus you have other levels of connectivity, like, for example, marketing and sale of that particular product from St. Vincent and Grenadines. To date, I am not aware that we have manufactured enough cannabis oil to be exported outside the boundaries in the normal, natural sense of things, to be exported outside of St. Vincent and Grenadines. That's where I'm going with this. The management, of course, is the mission statement I'm reading for the medicinal cannabis industry. I think probably my good friend Tyrrell will have to say more about these issues when it comes to cultivation, manufacture, management, and governance and administration of this medicinal cannabis industry. So we are really serious here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'm thinking that the legal framework will have to be, I wouldn't want to say adjusted, but we have to have a conversation with village councils, with the town councils, with government ministers, with the church or churches, with all non-governmental organizations within civil society. We have to have a conversation as to where we're going with this. Medical cannabis industry. For the legal medicinal cannabis industry, strict regulations are in place for the disposal of cannabis waste, requiring it to be rendered unusable and unrecognizable by methods such as grinding and mixing with other materials, composting or incineration at approved facilities under the oversight of the Medical Cannabis Authority, which is the MCA. All right, yes. So you're saying that the traditional farmers should have been the first to benefit from this product when it became legal. They should have been given the first set of license as bona fide license holder. And that is where I'm coming to. Before we got to that point, there was an amnesty program. I'm going to shift a little, for me to accommodate the lighting arrangements within this particular area that's where we are right now. The issue of this thing called license, I say thing for want of a better word. Yes? There, we are a little bit better. Where was I? To obtain a license, but there was an amnesty. Amnesty program was implemented, allowing traditional growers to register with the MCA, which is the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. So those traditional growers were given an amnesty. So that program says, surrender your crops at designated place to transition into the legal framework, rather than having them destroyed by the police officer. Because remember, in the main, marijuana or cannabis is illegal. Now we are moving towards at that time, we're moving towards the establishment of the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, MCA. What is the real issue? To obtain a license to grow medicinal marijuana in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you must apply to the MCA, that is the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. The process is regulated under the Medicinal Cannabis Act of 2018. So I came back in 2017, and the next year, by 2018, we have had the introduction of this law, Medicinal Cannabis Act, Cannabis Industry Act in 2018. But here is the thing, here is the clincher. There was an application process. So to meet the basic qualifications, applicants must be a citizen or an ordinary resident of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for at least 3 years, or a locally incorporated company, or a registered cooperative society. You must be ordinary resident, and you must be a citizen, and you must belong to, one of these, an incorporated company or registered cooperative society. Of course, we have registered cooperative societies. I was part of the regulatory arm. The Cooperative Society Act was part of our Bible at the time, Cooperative Bible. So you have financial cooperatives and non-financial cooperatives. So, yeah, so we understand, we could identify these, and so. You are to complete application forms. So you download and you complete the required forms from the MCA website. Those forms I checked are still there. Form 1 talks about a license application. Sections A, D, E, and F must be completed by all. Section B for individuals or sole traders, and Section C for companies. And it went on, you give your form 2, form 3, then you have some other forms that are supplemental information specific to the type of license. And that is where we got licked up. When I say got licked up, bad. If you have up to 1 acre of land, the fee, because it's a types of cultivation license, cultivate, not manufacture, not anything else, but cultivate. If you want to cultivate marijuana, cannabis, you must have up to 1 acre of land. And your fee that you're paying would be $500. But if you have Class B now, if you have more than 1 acre, but up to 5 acres, and you're cultivating marijuana, you have to pay $2,500 for a cultivation license. Walk with me, walk with me. Then there is a Class C. If you have more than 5 acres of land, but up to 25 acres, the fee that you will have to pay, let me say you have 6 acres of land, you will have to come up with $225,000. Look at the jump. From $2,500, you move to a Class B. From a Class B to a Class C. More than 5 acres, up to 25,000 acres. 25 acres, you're going to pay $225,000. And Class D, that's the cream of the crop. More than 25 acres, up to 100 acres, your fee that you're going to pay is EC $800,000. So let us suppose we have traditional farmers who have 6 acres of land, and those traditional farmers inherited the lands from their grandparents. They will have to come up with $225,000. You tell me where they go get that money. Where they going to get that money from? So traditional farmers lose out, and guess what they did? A number of them start to make noise. But you see, when you band together, when you are able to sit together and reason, you will not be easily bought out. You will not be easily persuaded otherwise. You have one focus, and that is the reason why I keep saying that there are persons within our midst who understand a number of things, a number of initiatives that's happening on the ground, locally. You just can't throw up your hands in the air and decide you're not going to stand up in the face of injustice. Remember, I'm speaking about these medicinal plants within the context of our economic development. More than 1 acre, but up to 5 acres, you have to come up with $2,500. So maybe quite a few persons may be able to come up with that. But beyond that, the cultivation of marijuana in St. Vincent and the Grenadines became almost impossible for a number of traditional farmers to continue within this whole thing about, the acreage of land became elusive. The other thing too, you find that a number of farmers had to produce, let's say, some evidence of ownership or co-ownership of the land on which they were cultivating marijuana. So this would be a challenge, of course, because you would have to complete the forms. You'll have to bring your supporting documents in a sealed envelope and deliver them to the Medicinal Cannabis Authority headquarters. And it's in an area called Rivulet. And a non-refundable processing fee of $5,000 is required for the application. Undergo due diligence and inspection. The MCA will review the application, conduct background checks. So if you have criminal records, financial services, and so on, and inspect the proposed premises to ensure compliance with regulations. So that if you want to do a number of things with your plot of land, if you have a number of things you have to have here. So this is, if you gather supporting documents, include proof of land ownership. But some people have no deed of conveyance or no lease agreement with anybody, other police records for the owner, the directors, and all employees. That is if you're in a company. Yes, if you're in a company. But the thing about it is that you have to provide some proof, whether in a company or a single individual. You have to provide proof of ownership of the portion of land on which you are planting or cultivating marijuana. You have something named as the traditional cultivator's license. It says a special license for existing local farmers to transition into the legal industry, often offered on preferential terms. So I think I spoke a little bit too fast there, because this now is the traditional cultivator's license. They were said that for the first 2 years, they weren't going to be paying any license. You have to, Mr. Ford. There's no license fee for the first 2 years. And then for more detailed information, it's recommended to directly contact the Medicinal Cannabis Authority. Now, brothers and sisters, that's all good and well, because we want an industry, the medicinal cannabis industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to be productive, to be able to, to strengthen our economic base, because of course, bananas, we have lost out on the preferential treatments, and therefore bananas gone literally to the dogs. What do you do in a situation where you are promised certain things? We would have had some discussions. We would have had some negative feedback when it comes to transitioning to the medicinal cannabis industry, and we are where we are. I want to say that the National Liberation Movement will continue to dialogue with our farmers as to see a best way forward, because there is a way forward, especially when it comes to the economic development of our country. I'm always getting on about that. So yeah, creating jobs. One gentleman was talking and was loud enough to say, look, we know how to make money in this country. And I believe you. I believe you, because that particular gentleman was reflecting on a number of other persons' ideas and discussions where they would have been, and like the rum shop, they sit down and they all talk. He said, you know what, man, this is how to make money. You would have heard people talk about the fact that if you could sell illegal drugs and you could use the same sort of networking that you have, but you develop it better. Brothers and sisters, do not let anybody tell you that you cannot function properly, because some politicians give the idea that I will give you a $200 and that's the end of it. When the $200 finish, come back to me. That's creating a dependency syndrome from which you will never, ever be released. Because if a man teach you how to fish, that is different from if he's giving you a fish every day. What happens when he doesn't get a fish? When you don't get a fish? And what happens when you and he fall out? What happens when your children need something? That is part of a tactic of fear that will take hold of Vincentians when they always have to go to a politician in order for the politician to give them something. And I am saying that we have to reorganize this whole Ministry of Agriculture. We have to reassess. Out of the 7,000 acres of land, I understand that were, first to begin, 33,000 acres. We are reduced to less than 7,000 acres of land for agriculture. We have got to reassess reorganize. We have got to go back to the land and work smarter, not harder, smarter, in order to move us from where we are. We have $1 billion, $1 billion CIF food bill for our country of 110,000 people. And we are looking for innovative ways in which to make money and also to contribute to our lives and livelihoods in the best way we know how. Vincentians are hardworking. All we want is an ability to work and mind ourselves, and so we have got to get that into the top part of our brain, that is the thinking part. And the National Liberation Movement, a movement with a political arm, the one to which I belong. I was asked to be the leader, elected to be the leader rather, and here am I today on camera helping us to understand that together we will, together we will, together we will vote for Doris Charles in the upcoming elections. Those elections will be on the 27th of November this year, 2025. You go to your polling division, polling stations, mark your X, and some persons have their fingers not quite sitting, and so put your mark next to that X, and the X, and put your mark next to the bicycle is our symbol. And we have been here talking about, the nature of what the bicycle represents and all of that. Progress is one of those things. Economic progress is one of those things that we represent. Yes, Mrs. Hodge, you said the point of those who made the law was to put the local farmers or cultivators out of the picture. So they would not be able to afford the license. Hence, only investors and those with money could afford, let me see if I touch this thing here properly and get what you are saying there, could afford to continue to grow the herb locally. Mrs. Hunt, you touch on something that really is a sore point for a lot of those traditional cultivators. They have complained about the fact that they would have had to sell, remember, only cultivators license they would have had. And they would have had to sell to persons whose fingers never touch the soil as far as the planting of the marijuana is concerned. Now, I'm not saying that there cannot be persons within organizations who, for example, you planted bananas, then you will have those within the administration of the facility that supervises this whole the production and so on, of cultivation and production and adding value to some of these products. But here it is, that a young man or young men from certain quarters will just come in and decide, let me buy all that you have. And they will buy marijuana at a certain price that is not beneficial to the marijuana planters. So here you have the problem, where some persons go back to the illegal planting of marijuana. And somehow, I am told that the trade is still going on. And people are saying they have to make $1. They wouldn't specify, mind you, because they know that if they come and they tell me, or they sell into Tom, Dick and Harry, I might end up going and talking to Tom and telling Tom, well, this is wrong, and all of that. So here is the thing. Within the pharmaceutical industry, we can make capsules, we can make all sorts of things there. Injections, or vaccines, as you would say, the creation of byproducts, or the byproducts, the linkages with the tourism sector. And here what I have noticed, little things like keyrings, chains. We could have community-based tourism initiatives that line the streets going up to Table Rock and other areas in St. Vincent and Grenadines. When the tourist comes, instead of allowing them just to drive along the coastal areas, you could have little kiosks or shops that set up at certain points on that route, and you could have discussions with the charters and so on. And when they get in here, they're able to stop in Leyu, stop in Barley, stop in Curtains, stop in Walilabu, stop in Chateaubelair before they go all the way down to Darkview Falls. That is what I'm talking about when it comes to linkages. But we've got to organize ourselves, farmers. We have got to realize that we can't continue to blame the other man, but we must take action. Put ourselves in an advantageous position where we can make sure we get the best out of all of these initiatives that are proposed by government. But we're going to change government. With Doris's help, we will change government. I promise you to give you of my best, very, very best. Vote the National Liberation Movement on the 27th of November, 2025. Hear me now. Soaps, body wash, hair products, all these things could have that medicinal value being added from the extraction of certain particles and certain other, special ingredients from medicinal marijuana. Making of ropes, that is now byproducts. Shoes, hats, bags. I am told as well we could have a particular link up with those in the UK and the United States of America, so that we could supply in winter months before the winter months comes on, thermoregulating pieces of materials, meaning it works naturally to insulate and keep your body warm, and in summer it breathes and helps your body to cool down. And these extracts from these pieces of string, well, it's not even a string, but as you organize, as you manufacture, that is the next level to which we must go. The manufacture of products, the adding value to this medicinal marijuana byproduct, so to speak, and so on, in order for us to pull stuff, yes, to make things from the product for our good and for our economic advancement, for our financial gain, you name it, call it what you will. It is possible for this to happen. So clothing, that's just talking about clothing. Paper is made also from the marijuana plant. Fuel is also made from that. That's where we're going when we talk about industries in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When we talk about manufacturing, when we talk about telling you, look, we can make money with this plant. And whoever told us that all we can do with the plant is to smoke it, and we are losing a generation, we are seeing many of our boys and girls smoke this product to their own detriment, and sometimes they think that they are doing themselves the best. I'm urging us, please. It's not everybody who would think the same as Sister Doris. But I want you to research it for yourself. Research it. Say to yourself, look, what value is this thing doing to me? Mothers and fathers. I remember a whole family was destroyed in recent memory as a result of smoking. I saw one of my friends, she was part of that particular family, and she started laughing in a certain way. So I'm wondering, like, okay, because it's not one size fits all. That's another thing. I'm not advocating for smoking. If you have an issue, you must be prescribed the particular part of the plant that will help. For example, as I said, I have used the cannabis oil with very good results. And not me alone, there are other persons as well. And as I've said before at the beginning of this program, if something is prescribed for me, 2 teaspoons of sunset rum, 3 bottles of whatever else that you must drink it and so on. Is the doctor that will prescribe it for me, and I will take it in order for better health. The marijuana as we know it. Brethren, some of you beat up on me. And I say, all right, sometimes you have to get some lash, when it comes to these issues, not physical blows I'm talking about. And some folks beg to differ when it comes to the strain of marijuana we have here in St. Vincent and Grenadines. I am saying, yes, Mr. Haji said that only be done when we work together. Of course, that is those who made the laws, the cultivators, those would be manufacturers, because we will have manufacturers here in St. Vincent and Grenadines. We will be building industries. We will be looking at the Camden Park, not too far away from me, the Camden Park industrial site, in order for us to look at least 2 or 3 of those empty shells and turn them into something productive. The entrepreneurs of this country will say to us, because we will have a series of conversations going backward and forward, where they'll be able to say, we want X or Y in this particular area. So that's the drive. We will make money. And I'm saying we, meaning us indeed. We will make money together and raise the bar on what it is that we will accept or not accept. You have a lot of noise going on right now. Plenty noise. People grab something in the hand and that's okay for a while, myself, will jump up and thing, but that's okay for a while. But what is the real issue? Don't miss that. Don't miss the real issue, and that is, after all that noise is finished, if you put back the same government, it's the same thing you're going to get. There's nothing different. And then some people say, well, where we go get the money to do this? Let me tell you something. If a government minister named Doris goes abroad and get a loan in the name of the government of the day, in the name of not the government of the name of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's whose money? It belongs to the state. So one of the things that we will do is to make an assessment as to what exactly is left. And those loans that are already secured in the name of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the current administration, well, the one just Parliament prorogue and what have you, and we are in the election mode. But the former government will say, we'll have to give an account. Otherwise, guess what? Somehow or the other, we will get the money from them. Trust me on that. We will get the money from them, because they go and they get a loan in the name of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're telling me in one instance, over $800 million we are indebted to the Republic of China on Taiwan. Then you have all these figures, some of which, for the likes of, I don't know, the accountant, the auditor general can't pull that audit together properly. Why? Because there isn't a proper account that is before us at this time. And you have an opposition that we paid the opposition, we paid government ministers. They are our employees. We paid them. You had an opposition for over 20 years. Can't get the PAC meet, which is the Public Accounts Committee, to meet. So they are equally contributory negligent. They have contributed to the decline. They have contributed to the decline in this economy, because they couldn't hold the government of the day to account to say, look guys, you're all borrowing another $10 again. Where are they going to do with it? They get in Parliament and they talk, and that's about the size of it. We want real governance, people who will be able to understand where we are at. We are definitely looking at collaboration. We are looking at persons who would sit and talk, and not just talk for the sake of talking, but we have a roadmap. as to where we are going to take this country called our home, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We cannot continue like this, brothers and sisters. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to have those who are supposed to be the watchman of the purse turn their eyes and then within recent time turn around and say, oh, if you put us there, you know, we go do this and we go do that. Yes, Mrs. Hodges said, we as a nation can make monies together. Together we will. You're starting up again, you know. Together we will. Together we will. That has been our mantra. Is the only thing, the best thing I should say that has ever come across our minds when we sat and came up with these ideas. Together we will. You have some other people say together they win. To us, we started this mantra. Together we will. Together we will. We will make money. We will create industries. We will raise the bar on where we are as a people, as a nation. After over 200 and something years of our existence, we need to go forward, of course, under the banner of Prince Emmanuel, under the supremacy of God. That is written in our Constitution. Some people are trying to run away from it. Oh, I don't go to church. I don't do this and I do. That's another story for the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, because there is such a ministry that will help us to understand how our relationship with each other should actually be, you know, enhanced. Not that they're going into your home to take away your children and tell you what to say on a Sabbath. No. The issue is that as a nation, we will make monies together. We will work together to help to run our country in a better way than what we have nowadays. Brothers and sisters, here are some other things. Where the factory is designed to use fabric, we'll touch on that briefly, but where the factories that can be used to do extraction of oil. I would have visited, it was about three small factories that extract oil. And the machinery seemed to be quite simple. And in my way of thinking, because I would have seen like a little pot and the small amounts, small amounts. Well, welcome, Desmond and Prentice, welcome. And to me, you boil the leaves and you know, not too long. They give, of course, those who understand the process. But I'm saying, why is it that we can't use that? Just the oil, you know, you're going into the clothes and the body wash and hair products and soaps and so, not yet. Well, let's use this cannabis oil. You think bad like so forth? Well, you know what I mean when I say bad like so forth. The thing good, but expensive. There's a little bottle like that. That was for like $80. But we would normally go to the drugstores in Kingston and we buy 2 capsules just big like that for $50 and $60. Or we buy a little spray in a can. I am saying this particular industry can make money. I picked up on some other things that are paintings, t-shirts, cannabis-infused candles, mugs, card games with the branding of the marijuana, the weed on it, jewelry, brooches, cushions, curtains, socks, posters, wrapping paper, silicone molds, ornaments, doorknobs, teddy bears, keyrings. Listen, one of the greatest universities that many of us are overlooking is a university called YouTube. You have any more other ideas that we could think about in this world? You just type in whatever it is that you want. And you ask Uncle Google as well. Of course, you know Google, the massive search engine, the www wide world web. Yes, and you search that, how to make whatever it is. And it is right there before us. But many of our nationals find it necessary to do otherwise, because it is easier, less stressful to become involved in some productive venture, or a venture that could turn out to be productive. The difference. And creatures of habit we are. Because this morning, if I don't want to move, nobody could make me move. But if my life depended on my movement, obviously I would move. So this is what I am saying to us as nationals. We have got to be thinking differently, because the national liberation movement is about that changed mindset. Your fixed mindset tells you, boy, watch me born in the village up there, and me really think that me could amount to anything else. And you harp on that every day, boy, so life go, boy, me can't change, you know. Rubbish, 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 rubbish. You can change. You can. Because it is your mind that actually creates that space in your head. They sort to tell you, of course I could build a factory. It begins with a thought, a positive thought. And yes, there are some persons who are not so well. There are some persons who are challenged in so many ways. They have some disadvantage, something, some medical, something that will prevent them from thinking along those lines. But I'm saying to those of us who have the capacity and the capability, let us not continue to sit and think that if $500 can carry us for like nearly 2 weeks, and then at the end of the period, I will go back to a minister of government and get another $500. And do you know where they get that money from? Is it from investment monies that come from overseas? Or where? You don't know where they get that from. But at the end of the day, there is going to be a reckoning in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that reckoning, that accounting, that sense of accountability will tell us exactly where we are, every single last one of us. If we are not careful, you hear me, brothers and sisters? Every single one of us, if we're not careful, we will be in worse situation that we are in at the moment, if we don't take stock of where we are at. A thought. From a thought, and I know some people go beat up on me, who have been there, done that, went through a whole heap of stuff, and realize that it's at the end of a particular time period. My grandmother say what? One does full basket. I know it have some hard-working brethren everywhere, whether Rastafarian or non-Rastafarian, hard-working. And all I'm saying, one does full basket. If we put our heads together, if we bring ourselves together within the confines of our communities, because the National Liberation Movement is about empowering our communities. The buck stops with you. You decide whether or not Doris Charles has a second chance. You are the ones who decide that, not the other way around. You are key. This nation depends on you for our movement forward. So that's how we've got to think again. That's how we have got to become community again. It is not me having my big car and my big Jeep and my big bus and not being able to look over the fence to see that my brother and sister is in need of, let's say, a bucket of water or a piece of saltfish or something, two breadfruit, 3 grain matches or something. And I know that is really going really, really low in light of our advancement these days, but there are some rural communities that are still there, so we've got to help them to get up to another level. Yeah, you say it is certainly not for their bank account. Okay, this is hard to just throw some things on me. You really throw some things on me. Some persons would tell you that the minister would give them monies from their bank account. That's fine. But in the main, you may have some persons who would have to write on a piece of paper and give the minister. Minister keeps that in some little bag on some file to say that I did give Doris $50. No receipts to show where that come from. So in some instances, and possibly few and far between, yes, I know, it's certainly not from their bank account. Yes, I understood you to mean that. In some instances, you will find that some ministers are able to do that, but in many of the instances, you have got to question from where did that particular minister get the money. You've got to question that. And it is as you question that you realize, wait a minute, you're going to ignore that call. You're going to question, wait a minute, where exactly I am doing anything at all that I want, I have to go to the minister. Here's another thing that I haven't, it was not part of the script here, but it just popped into my head. You see that 100% mortgage financing that some ministers will jump up and say, we provided 100% finance, mortgaging, we provide it. Brothers and sisters, it is true that a minister would be the conduit of that, but not the source. They may sit in a cabinet meeting, they may make a particular policy, and they may call the banks, they may say, okay, let's do this. Or the bank itself, it may have originated from the banking sector, and they have a discussion going. And they are accommodating to us consumers, to us householders. They are accommodating. All right, she wants a vehicle. We'll give her 100% financing. But who has to pay it back? Who has to pay back that loan? Ministers are conduits of information. They are conduits of policy decisions. They are conduits of all these plans that they say that they're making. But it's the hard work of civil servants who will have to write those stuff. I've been there, I've done that. You have to sit and write and decide this is what you're going to say and do. Then you hand the paper to the particular minister. If that minister is or has been trained at university level, because we have had several ministers who have not been trained at university level, the minister himself will have to ask a permanent secretary. Who? We have some brilliant permanent secretaries in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They are the ones who run the ministries. So I am coming back to this point to say this. Don't make any minister fool you and tell you they are responsible for you getting your house. They are responsible for you getting your car. They are merely the conduits, and yes, you must say thanks, but not to the point where if something is wrong with your brother or sister in the next town or the next village, that you cannot stand up and speak and say, oh God, we make them do tanti such and such. They should not do that tanti so. That is wrong, and stand up and speak out. Justice. That is what prompted me when I heard my brothers and sisters came to me and say, look, X, Y, or Z. That prompted, because me personally, there's some claims that they make on certain ministers in this country to say, minister, do them this and that. Somebody say, oh, they must be afraid you, or this and that. No. Women, stand for principle. Women, stand for principle. Women, stand for principle. If you're not going that way, maintain that and say, I'm not going that way. And yes, you've got to bear the consequences of your actions. Please, we've got to pull this back. We've got to possess ourselves in such a way that we realize, It's not working. It has not worked for 20 years. It hasn't worked for 30 years. This now, we need something different. But in needing something different, hear me now. We have something named the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I say something, but you know what I mean, a document. All right. Yes, well, welcome. Welcome, my cousin, Mercedes Moss. Welcome. Yeah, we have this Constitution in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that spells out a number of things. We have some fundamental rights. We have some clauses inside it that are entrenched. They shouldn't be moved. That's what I mean when I say entrenched. Like deprivation of property. You see that issue down in Canada, where we have the Canada lease ratification, and now you hear folks coming in and talking about this whole issue of I think a Canadian firm was saying something about they want to help or they want to advocate for a new governance structure within Canada. Rubbish. Who could ever come into your house to tell you that? A stranger to tell you how to make up your bed. Those are issues that people in Canada has to decide, and people in Canada must rise to the occasion and raise their voices against what appears to be injustice and what really is injustice. It's not just you just accept things like that. We have gone past that stage. Plenty noise. You're hearing a lot of noise. After the noise is stilled, when you lie down and you look up into the face of heaven on a regular basis, because all of us does look up, whether we want to look up now and again, close your eye now and again, we're looking up into the face of heaven. And we want to understand what St. Vincent is all about, where we are going. You have men and women who, if you're not watching me now, you will watch me later, yes, on the rebroadcasting, and you realize, you should really do something. And I keep saying, let's get together, get in touch. It's not hard. It's not hard to really pull yourself together, even at this late stage, and decide, I'm going to join with Doris and the National Liberation Movement and all the others who are abroad, who are supporting, and all those in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and decide to make a change for the better. At the end of all of this, what is going to happen to people like me? I'll be able to lie down, sit down, or wherever. And when my day comes, because surely it's coming, death will find us someday, I shall be satisfied that I tried. I don't know about you. I have a grandchild. I have 2 sons. Those 2 sons are taking care of themselves. My grandchild will be taken care of. I keep saying this, brothers and sisters. I do what I do because I am motivated by love for this nation state of ours. I lose night sleep. Why? Sometimes, to sit down and plan a program, do whatever. Get involved with children's ministries and women's ministries. I get involved. You cannot sit idly by and fold your hands and decide you're not going to do anything. South Leeward are coming from Vermont, Table Rock, Sugar Ridge, all those places up yonder. Good night, good night, good night. All those places coming down all the way all here. Chauncey, Rillan Hill, Kittles, Penniston, Number 8, New Penniston, Old Penniston, you name it, are coming. I need your vote. You need me as much as I need you. We need each other in order to make this thing work. All these issues. Nomination day is Monday, and by God's grace, I'll be nominated. I am your servant. I am willing to work for you, and you too must be willing to come together so that we can make a difference in this. Not just South Leeward alone, we can make a difference in South Leeward, we replicate that throughout the country. Let's work together. I give you my word. I stand committed by the grace of God to do my very best my very best. You know, on a Sabbath, I have to go to church. If there are issues that touch and concern, like, you know, somebody's house burning down, you know, there's somebody who needs some sort of food or something. There's some things that, yes, I am there. Call me, but I have to go give God the praise and thanks who gave me the life in my body. I am asking you to give me your vote. Give us your vote. I don't say give me a vote. That's in a selfish way, because you vote for me, you're voting for us. So that together we will. Together we will. Together we will. That's the mantra. You will see more of me after nomination day. You will see posters after nomination day. Because, you know, you have to wait until you get the nomination and then you move forward. You're seeing me, of course, through cyberspace, through the social media things and so on, but more, you know. Yes, you say make a great difference in our island state. Yes, Mrs. Hodge, I want to thank you very much for being there, for you know, holding up the banner of the National Liberation Movement. Yes, we are there. We are making sure that we will be looking after you. But first thing, nothing is going to happen, save and accept, if you vote for Doris Charles. Put your X next to the bicycle or your mark next to the bicycle on elections day. And let's bring this thing home. A seat for Doris Deborah Charles in this story of our lives. History must not condemn us. Let's win together. I love you, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with all my heart, because you have given me a place to live. You have given me the support of my own, so that I was able to rear my children. Now they're gone and they're elsewhere, but I am still here, wanting to do the same for other people's children. Okay? I love you, St. Vincent. Yes, I do. And God bless you. And I'll see you next time. Yes? So may the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit rest and abide with us now and forevermore. Amen. Peace now and goodbye.